welcome to another video. In this video we're going to have a look at musical minimalism in depth. People think it's a very simple thing. It's actually very, very complicated, just as complicated as serialism. Welcome back to our series on 20th century musical practices. Today we're diving into musical minimalism, a movement often described as simple, but as we shall see, there's so much more to it than meets the ear. Minimalism is a rich and multifaceted genre that's profoundly influenced contemporary music across classical, experimental and popular styles. We'll break down its techniques, explore its history, explore its philosophy and analyse its most famous works and composers. So, without further ado, let's begin. So snazzy. Minimalism emerged in the United States during the 1960s, a time of social upheaval, countercultural movements and experimentation in art, music and thought. Its rise paralleled movements in visual art, where artists like Donald Judd and Agnes Martin explored repetition, simplicity and clarity. I do love art. I love comparing everything to art. In music, minimalism was a reaction against the dense and complex structures of post-war avant-garde music, such as those by European serialists, and I talk about them in another video which will be out at some point. Composers like Steve Reich, Philip Glass, Lamont Young and Terry Riley sought to strip music down to its essentials, emphasising repetition, gradual change and a meditative quality. Let's have a think about the philosophy now. Minimalism isn't just about less is more. It's about focusing on that limited set of materials and exploring their potential in depth. So it's not just about writing that little minor chord ostinato. You've got to explore the minimal in depth. Treat it as if it were a new complexity, but you're exploring minimal stuff. It asks, how can simple elements generate complexity? So that's it. How can those simple elements generate something very complex? How can simplicity generate complexity? So it's not simple. How can repetitive patterns create transformative listening experiences? Minimalism employs a variety of techniques that make it far more intricate than its surface simplicity might suggest. So let's break that down. 1. Repetition and gradual change. Sounds simple on the surface, doesn't it? But it's not. Minimalist compositions often feature repeating patterns and phrases, but repetition isn't static. Gradual changes over time create a sense of development and evolution. For example, in Steve Reich's Music for 18 Musicians, repeating rhythmic patterns slowly shift as instrumental parts are layered, faded in, or replaced. So it's highly complicated. The technique is as follows. The gradual process engages a listener who becomes hyper-aware of subtle changes. And it's not easy to just do that. You have to think about how you're going to do that if you're approaching it as a composer. It's not just about merely repeating things. So how can you do that? Phasing involves playing the same motif at slightly different tempos or start times so that the parts slowly drift out of sync and then back in again. For example, Reich's piano phase. Two pianists play an identical motif, but one speeds up slightly, creating constantly shifting textures. So the resultant music is highly complex, and notating it and playing it as such would be, well, maybe impossible actually. You generate the music in between the moments. It's a result of the performance, so it looks simple but it's not. Phasing reflects the natural processes of time and human perception. It's like watching waves on a shore, repetitive yet always changing. In additive processes, a musical pattern starts small and gradually expands by adding notes or phrases over time. Messiaen does this a lot as well. I talk about that in the Messiaen lecture. A good example of this in relation to minimalism would be Philip Glass's Einstein on a Beach. Here, simple motifs grow as layers of notes and voices are added incrementally, creating a dense yet coherent texture. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Einstein on a Beach is a massive piece of work. Just listen to it, watch it, and think about these little additive processes. Then we have static harmony, and this is where you think, oh, this is where I repeat my little minor chord as an ostinato. No, it's more complicated than that. You have to think about the harmony. Unlike traditional Western music, which is often driven by harmonic progression, minimalist music frequently employs long stretches of static harmony or slow-moving chords. I think, actually, I want to talk about Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata now. That is a slow harmonic progression. Slow harmonic rhythm, the third movement especially. It sounds super fast, doesn't it? And it is repeated arpeggios. Well, it's repeated arpeggiaic structures, but chords change. But the harmonic language is very slow harmony. Doesn't mean fast notes. Think of slow harmonic movement. You can have the same in minimalism. You can have fast rhythmic phasing, additive rhythms, for instance, but slow harmonic changes over time. So there's that contrast between the fast rhythmic movements, the phase shifting and all that, and the slow on top harmony changing. It's a nice effect. Fast and slow combined together creates a sense that time is static. They really do play with time a lot in the human perception of time. Terry Riley's In C is a series of short repeated melodic fragments played in any combination, all anchored by a constant pulse on the note C. And I do talk about that in another video as well. I think maybe in the avant-garde, one of the avant-garde videos, I can't remember anymore. But it's obviously reactionary. I think it's reactionary. C is a very consonant, traditional, homely thing. And even when you're in a world of post-war and serialism and atonality, to then go back to C, it says a lot, I think, in that context. So the philosophy behind this is as follows. Static harmony encourages meditative listening, shifting the focus from harmonic resolution to rhythmic and textural interplay. So this static harmony encourages a deeper focus on those temporal shifts, phasing, additive rhythms, the play with the perception of time, the play with the human perception of time. Don't know why I have to specify that, because we all know we're humans. Minimalist music is often defined by its steady pulse, which provides a consistent rhythmic framework for the other musical elements. For example, Reich's clapping music, such a great piece, so fun to do if you can, just play it with someone. Two performers clap a repeating rhythmic pattern with one part shifting its starting point over time. So it's just the starting point that shifts. So all you have to do is learn that pattern and then shift the starting point. One of you shifts the starting point and then the resultant rhythms together. Oh, it's so good. So the philosophy behind this, what is it? Well, the pulse acts like a heartbeat, grounding the music and making it accessible while enabling complex layers to unfold. It is seemingly simple, it's accessible, you can do it, you just have to learn the rhythms, clapping them. The way it gets complicated is working with the other person clapping. The music comes out of the interaction between the two people clapping. Minimalist composers often layer multiple repeating patterns to create intricate textures. These layers can be rhythmically independent, creating polyrhythms and interlocking patterns. An example of this would be Reich's Tehillim. In this piece, voices and instruments create dense textures by layering lines that cycle at different rates. Layering creates a sense of motion and richness despite the simplicity of the individual components. That's what it is. So it's together, it sounds really complicated, rich, polyrhythmic, complex, dense, interlocking, interacting, even though individually the part's quite simple. But he had to think about that. So it's not really simple. It's quite a complicated thing to do. It is complicated to do. Minimalism draws heavily from non-Western musical traditions, such as Indian classical music, the drone and raga structures for instance, African drumming, interlocking rhythms and repetition from African drumming. We also have Indonesian gamelan, the cyclical patterns in that, the metallic timbres. For example, Reich's studies of West African drumming influenced works like drumming. In some minimalist works, performers have flexibility in how they play the music. This indeterminacy adds variety to performances. Again, so it's all about the moment of performance and what can you generate from it. Slightly unpredictable, but something that you couldn't do if you hadn't organised the parts in such a way, so that they interacted with each other in such a way. It's so complicated that you can't write it down and play it repeatedly. Things that have to interact by accident. I think that's where its complexity lies. For example, Terry Riley's in C. With this piece, performers decide how many times to repeat each phrase, and this creates unique interpretations. Undeniably so. Now let's have a look at some notable composers and works. So we have Lamont Young. Young's The well-tuned piano and drone-based works explore sustained tones and microtonality. So again, you may think, minimalism, microtonality. Yes, indeed, you can have microtonal minimalism. It's all about exploring the complexity of the minimal. We have Terry Riley. His seminal work in C, 1964, introduced minimalism to a broader audience, obviously because it was in C and everybody loves that, don't they? In this piece he combined repetition with the freedom of interpretation. Then we have Steve Reich. Reich's music for 18 musicians, clapping music and piano phase exemplified techniques like phasing and textural layering. He plays around with rhythm a lot. And of course we cannot forget Philip Glass. Glass's operas, such as Einstein on a Beach and works like Glassworks, use repetition, additive processes and harmonic stasis. And John Adams, often seen as post-minimalist, Adams combines minimalist techniques with more dynamic forms, as in Short Ride in a Fast Machine and Nixon in China. Minimalism resonated with the countercultural movements of the 1960s and 1970s. Its meditative, repetitive qualities mirrored the interest in Eastern philosophies and the growing push against consumerist culture. By the 1980s, minimalism had crossed into mainstream classical music and even pop, influencing artists like David Bowie, Brian Eno, and even contemporary EDM producers. Minimalism is far from simple. It's a sophisticated exploration of repetition, process, and change. Its techniques challenge listeners to engage deeply, transforming seemingly basic patterns into profound musical experiences. From the meditative drones of Lamont Young to the hypnotic rhythms of Steve Reich, minimalism has left an indelible mark on the musical landscape. So thanks for watching this relatively in-depth exploration of minimalism, and I'll see you in the next video.